The story kicks off in an old Chinese city inside the Black Snake sect. A shadowy figure walks straight toward the main gate, while lightning cracks in the sky above. The sect members are already lined up and waiting. Swords and spears are pointed forward, bodies stiff under the pouring rain. Their faces show pure hate, teeth gritted, murder in their eyes. The second he steps into view, they charge as one, throwing everything they've got. The mysterious man stops without a flinch. His hand drifts slowly to his sword hilt. Then in a blink, the blade flashes out. The front wave drops instantly, bodies hitting the ground like trash. He cuts through them cold and clean, eyes locked on the rest. Panic hits the survivors hard. They back off quick and try to rethink their plan. They yell and rush him again, coming from every side this time. He stomps the ground so hard the stone splits under his foot. Using the bounce, he shoots forward like a shadow and rips right through the pack. Next thing, he's standing face to face with the last ones left, gripping his sword in both hands. One hard swing, and a head flies off, blood mixing with the rain. The others think they see a chance and swing from behind. One guy jumps high, spear aimed dead at the man's back. Sure, he's got the kill. But before the tip even gets close, a scream rips through the storm. A bright flash, and the spear guy's head tumbles off his shoulders. In his last split-second thought, he looks totally lost. How the hell did the sword come from behind? The mysterious man showed no reaction. The rain softened and silence settled over the scene. Broken weapons lay scattered among fallen bodies. At the center of the destruction, only the mysterious man remained standing, surrounded by corpses, shattered steel, and the ruins of what had once been the Black Snake sect's entrance. Meanwhile, within the sect's palace, another mysterious figure waited. He was an elderly man dressed in white, a snake tattoo etched across his back. A blade rested calmly at his side, and a faint smile lingered on his face, as though he had long anticipated this moment. The space before him stood empty. Thunder cracked, and in the next instant, the mysterious man appeared directly in front of him. The two figures studied each other in silence. The old man was the first to break it, acknowledging that the figure before him was the one known as the Nameless Hero. The mysterious man offered no verbal response. His hands shifted slowly behind his back, his grip tightening around a second blade. The old man laughed, remarking that someone called a hero should not appear so restrained. In response, the mysterious man stated that he was not a hero at all. The answer caught the old man off guard, prompting him to question why the man had been eliminating members of the Black Snake sect. At that moment, the mysterious man fully revealed his face. From the old man's reaction alone, it became clear that he understood one thing with certainty. The man before him was not driven by heroism. Still, the meaning behind his words remained unclear. Confusion overtook him, and he burst into laughter, covering his face with his hands, convinced that the mysterious man had deceived everyone. The mysterious man dismissed that notion, making it clear that no deception had taken place. People had simply chosen to see him as they wished. His appearance and movement were unusual, almost absurd, yet his presence carried undeniable intent. Without warning, the old man extended his hand toward his blade. A blue aura surged through his body as he acknowledged the mysterious man's intrigue. As he began to draw his snake-shaped weapon, he declared that crossing the river of the dead that day would leave him without regret. With killing intent rising, he challenged the mysterious man directly, stating that regardless of titles or legends, the purpose was the same. One of them was there to kill the other. The old man's expression resembled that of a viper, cold and predatory. Opposite him, the mischievous man tightened his grip on his sword with both hands as a red aura began to pulse through his body. At the same time, a purple-blue aura surged from the old man, both presences colliding before a single strike was made. For a moment, time itself seemed to halt. Rain droplets lingered in the air as the two figures stood facing one another, each waiting for the instant to move. When the rain finally fell, the mischievous man burst forward at full speed. The old man followed immediately, his gaze sharp and venomous. Beneath the pouring rain, they clashed relentlessly. Steel rang against steel again and again, the force of their battle echoing beyond the dark walls of the Black Snake sect. The fight raged without pause until at last it came to an end. The mischievous man remained standing. Blood coated his blade as he stepped out of the sect grounds. He slid the sword back into his sheath, a faint smirk forming on his face as thunder rolled overhead. In the flash of lightning, his features were fully revealed. It was the face of a psychopath. To understand the story, it must return far into the past. A single petal fell into a barrel filled with blood. Beside it lay a corpse, while blood streamed steadily down a flight of stairs. Footsteps soon echoed through the space as figures advanced upward along the blood-soaked steps. The sound multiplied, revealing not one or two, but countless people ascending together. As the view widened, a vast host came into sight, marching beneath raised flags, each bearing different sect emblems upon their backs, all climbing toward a towering ancient sect. At the forefront stood four individuals, a monk, an old man, and two other men. The monk stared at the carnage in disbelief and stated that the martyr had foretold such an end for those who possessed forbidden knowledge. Bodies of sect members were scattered across the ground like slaughtered beasts. Some had been dragged across the floor, while others had been cut down where they stood. The sight was so horrific that the monk struggled to look away, and the others were left equally shaken by the devastation before them. The short old man screamed in disbelief, declaring that such devastation could only be the work of a demon, cursing whatever monstrous being could have produced such an abomination. The other old man beside him raised his hand, signaling him to stop, stating calmly that someone was approaching. Beneath the scattered pile of rocks, a lone figure was still standing. Against all odds, he remained alive, moving forward step by step. His legs trembled violently as he advanced. His body was cold and drenched in blood. The blade he carried was shattered, his sword broken, and his clothing torn apart, revealing countless wounds. With what little strength he had left, he announced that the mortal sect had been completely annihilated. The old man shouted in shock, recognizing him as the Plum Blossom Swordmaster and questioning how he could still be alive. The man, barely clinging to life, blood spilling from his body, declared weakly that the destruction had been caused by only a single individual. Without warning, an intense pink light erupted from the direction where the Plum Blossom Master had last appeared. Panic spread through the gathered sect members as warnings were shouted, urging them to block the advancing presence. In the next instant, a violent explosion tore through the area. Bodies and severed limbs were hurled through the air as the force rippled outward. Through the settling dust and debris, one man managed to see the Plum Blossom Master split cleanly in two. A furious cry rang out, demanding that the attacker reveal himself. Moments later, a lone figure emerged, walking forward at an unhurried pace while carrying a severed head. He advanced toward the assembled warriors, calmly observing them. Among the crowd, he recognized familiar representatives from Shaolin, Wudang, Chongqing, and Nonghong. It became clear that the massacre had been carried out by a very young boy. He appeared genuinely surprised by the size of the force assembled against him. He wielded a long blade and wore the attire of the Taonhong sect. An enraged elder shouted at him, demanding silence and answers, seeking to know his identity and the reason behind the slaughter. The boy merely scratched his head, explaining that he had come after hearing that Manhwa was the strongest. Then he paused and let the severed head drop to the ground at the feet of the crowd. Blood streamed down his body as he calmly concluded that rumors were unreliable. The monk examined the severed head and recognized it as belonging to the elder of the Manhwa sect. The realization spread through the gathered crowd. The young boy raised his blade and directed it toward them, stating that since they had all gathered in such numbers, their combined strength must surpass that of the Manhwa sect. The words ignited their fury. Faces twisted with rage likened to roaring dragons as weapons were lifted one after another. Sect symbols and stances were revealed as they declared their intent to kill him on the spot and appease the fallen souls of Manhwa. The four elders charged forward in unison, unleashing their full power and magical attacks toward the nameless swordsman. He remained still, releasing a quiet sound of surprise as he observed them. Internally, he acknowledged that the situation was genuinely entertaining as he locked his gaze onto the four swordsmen closing in. The scene shifted. A man wearing a mysterious goggle over one eye appeared. A faint smirk crossed his face as he lifted his hand to the device, deciding to remove it. He exhaled slowly while gripping his neck, questioning whether facing a combined assault from so many opponents was still overwhelming for him. As the goggle came off, a cassette fell to the floor, revealing the recording of what he had been watching. The scene shifted again. The experience was described as a recently developed virtual reality game, infamous for extreme gore, including severed limbs, decapitations, and relentless violence. The content had sparked widespread outrage, leading to countless complaints demanding the service be shut down. The mysterious boy, once known as the Nameless Swordsman, stared at the cassette and reflected that no other game compared to it. He concluded that a more discreet approach would be necessary next time as he continued to look at the television. On the screen, a breaking news report appeared. The reporter announced that Mr. Ho of Darrell Corporation was missing and that assassination was suspected. The Nameless Swordsman reacted when a weak voice echoed from another room pleading for help. He turned his head toward the sound and calmly acknowledged it before standing up. He picked up an object from behind his chair, its surface resembling skin, and walked toward the source of the voice as the pleading continued. Inside the dark room, a man sat slumped on the floor. Dried blood pooled beneath him, while fresh blood ran down his face. As the light shifted, his condition became clear, one eye swollen shut, tears pouring from the other, sweat soaking his body as he begged desperately for mercy. The mysterious boy sat down in front of him, staring coldly. It became evident that the object in his hand was a hammer. He questioned whether the man truly wanted his help, and then seized the man's face, pressing his cheek with overwhelming force. The man cried out in confusion and fear, claiming he did not know why he had been kidnapped and insisting that he had done nothing wrong. His voice rose as he sobbed and pleaded. The mysterious man, once the swordsman within the game, released his grip as the man lowered his head. Photographs were then thrown onto the floor before him. The images revealed scenes of brutal murders, showing women and men treated as mere playthings. The sight was unmistakably horrific. The man's fear twisted into rage as he demanded to know how such evidence had been obtained. The mysterious man responded calmly, making it clear that innocence would have kept the man from ever becoming his target. Faced with the images, the man broke down again, shouting that he was repenting and begging for his life as tears streamed down his face. The mysterious man grabbed him and hurled him aside. He spoke with cold indifference, questioning why the man was so familiar with begging for mercy, and remarking that hearing such words had grown tiresome regardless of who spoke them. He raised the hammer and seized the man's head, swinging with brutal force. Before the blow could land, the man lunged forward and struck the mysterious boy in the stomach with all the strength he had left. The boy was thrown backward toward the entrance of the room. The man tore free from the ropes, binding his hands, and rose to his feet, teeth grinding as rage overtook his fear. He shouted threats and seized the hammer the boy had intended to use on him. The boy responded with a smirk. The man charged forward, screaming as he swung the hammer with lethal intent. The boy avoided the strike effortlessly, allowing the hammer to crash into the floor. When the man looked up, terror filled his eyes. In a single motion, the boy drove a brutal punch into the man's stomach and followed with a powerful kick to his face. The impact sent the man flying across the room where he slammed into the floor. His face was completely deformed. Both eyes were swollen shut, his cheeks and nose crushed, and broken teeth spilled from his mouth. He screamed incoherently, begging for distance and mercy, repeating that he did not want to die as his body trembled uncontrollably. The mysterious man finally spoke. He explained that most humans were herbivorous by nature, while a minority were carnivores. Those carnivores attacked, hunted, and devoured the weak. He stated that his role was to hunt those predators. His eyes were cold and merciless as he declared himself a hunter, intent on destroying those who preyed upon others. The man glanced toward a corpse lying across the room and erupted in hysterical screams. Horror twisted his expression as he crawled backward, desperately trying to escape. He continued shouting for the hunter to stay away as the distance between them closed. Suddenly, the door burst open. Armed men rushed into the room and shouted commands for both individuals to freeze. The hunter halted mid-motion as the men flooded the space. One of them announced that the hunter was under arrest on suspicion of kidnapping, false imprisonment, and murder. The hunter reacted with amusement, realizing this was how the authorities had located the place. Gunshots rang out, accompanied by warnings that live ammunition was being used. The hunter looked down at the points where the bullet struck him. The scene blurred slightly as he lifted his gaze toward the armed men. A sense of familiarity surfaced in his mind. He smiled. The hunter stated that the man had murdered 6 women, subjecting them to torture, photographing them while doing so, and killing them afterward. The man on the floor broke down completely, sobbing as tears streamed down his face. The hunter went on to indicate that many of the armed men standing there wore identical uniforms, yet were murderers themselves. He described them as animals, carnivores who hunted ordinary people. He defined himself as a hunter who preyed on such creatures, making it clear that their outrage was misplaced and that the true target of their anger should have been the man lying on the floor. One of the armed men aimed his weapon while casually lighting a cigarette with his free hand. He dismissed Hunter's word, stating that all he saw was a psychopathic murderer who kidnapped and killed people. The hunter responded with bitter amusement, acknowledging that speaking to law enforcement had been pointless from the start. His grip tightened around the hammer, his hand trembling with intent. A warning was shouted, but it came too late. The hunter surged forward and brought the hammer down, killing the man instantly. As the blow landed, gunfire erupted. Another shot struck the hunter, and the world seemed to fracture. A thought surfaced clearly in his fading consciousness. If another life were granted, it should be one filled with beasts he could kill without restraint. The bullet was shown tearing toward his chest. As it pierced his heart, realization settled in, the moment aligning perfectly, like a familiar mural finally understood. Memories flashed through his mind, him cleaning his blade, a blue aura filling the space around him. When the impact fully registered, his strength drained away, sweat poured from his body as he collapsed to the ground. The scene shifted once more. This time he was younger, as if reborn into another world. Confusion surfaced as he realized he was still conscious, despite having been shot. As that thought formed, a mysterious man approached and began to speak. The man sneered, surprised that the boy was still alive. He mocked him, recalling the effort it had taken to drag him from the marketplace, cursing the futility of the previous attack. He added that if he had been the hunter, the gunshot would have ended him for sure, and then threatened that he would face certain death tomorrow. He threw the boy against a wall covered in dried plants, and the impact sent him sprawling to the ground. His vision blurred. Shock and confusion clouded his senses. Reaching back, he grabbed a nearby stone, but a sudden wave of pain shot through his body. He collapsed to the ground, coughing violently as his body convulsed. While stretching out his arm, he noticed something unusual and sensed that something was wrong. Acting quickly, he reached for his clothing and tore it away to examine his condition. Dazed, he examined himself. The body was unfamiliar. Wounds marred his skin in ways he did not recognize. Slowly, he scanned the surroundings and then looked up at the sky. Recognition flickered in his eyes. He whispered the name aloud. Murim. Examining the markings around him, he realized they were written in the Murim script. A bright white light spilled through a doorway, illuminating his malnourished, frail form as he collapsed, pressing his hands against the floor. Tears streamed down his face as he clawed at his skin, whispering for his wish to have come true. Despite the anguish, a grim smile formed across his lips. A message appeared before him, suspended like a mirror in midair. Player Dong Bonus. Welcome to Murim Online, the world where the strongest reside. His expression darkened, and a chilling, horrifying smile slowly spread across his face. The next scene shifted to the stable where Sung was occupied with cleaning the horses. His hands moved in a steady, practiced rhythm, scrubbing away filth without pause. His body no longer reacted to the stench or the strain. Both had long become familiar companions. Suddenly, the door burst open with a violent kick, swinging inward as if struck by a force of pure intent. Before the work was finished, Mel appeared behind him, immediately pinching his nose in open disgust. With an impatient gesture, he signaled for Sung to follow. The smell clearly offended him, yet the boy enduring it earned no sympathy. Another task awaited, and obedience was expected without delay. Sung hesitated, fully aware that the stable remained unfinished. That hesitation was answered with cruelty. Mel seized him roughly and reminded him of his place. As an orphan surviving solely on the Dan family's leftovers, Sung had no right to question orders. Resistance held no meaning. Dragged away, he was left with no option but to comply. They soon reached the blacksmith's workshop, where an elderly man stood among heaps of worn blades and broken weapons. A large, intimidating figure was already present. The blacksmith questioned why Mel was absent and why Dong Yu had come instead. Dong Yu dismissed the question with ease, implying that Mel was busy indulging himself somewhere, free of any real responsibility. The explanation failed to impress. The blacksmith's focus remained on the task. The work was described as simple, yet merciless, moving an enormous pile of rusted swords and shattered weapons. The blacksmith remarked that such labor would be difficult for only two people. Dong Yu found the comment amusing, His laughter echoed through the workshop as he declared that they already possessed the perfect beast of burden. Without warning, he drove a brutal kick into Sung's back, sending him crashing to the ground. Sung lay there, gasping for air, the breath knocked clean from his lungs. Dongyu demanded movement, ordering the boy to stand and begin working. His voice carried impatience, sharpened by malice. As he rubbed his hands together, he casually reconsidered his own plans and decided that Sung would handle the entire task alone. Satisfied with that decision, he turned and left the workshop, abandoning the boy where he had fallen. The blacksmith watched in silence. Pity and unease flickered briefly across his aged face, but they faded just as quickly. In the end, he chose inaction, allowing the boy's suffering to continue without interference. With no one left to depend on, Sung forced himself upright and began lifting the heavy sacks of weapons onto his back. The weight crushed down on him, far beyond what his frail body could bear. He staggered forward, collapsed, and rose again, over and over, each fall followed by sheer will dragging him back to his feet. His body trembled violently, his breathing shallow and uneven, yet he refused to stop. The old blacksmith eventually acknowledged the effort. Observing how pale Sung would become, he suggested that the boy rest, noting that his condition had grown dangerously unstable, as though collapse was inevitable. Sung insisted he could continue, but his body betrayed him. His vision blurred with every step, sounds warped and stretched, drifting in and out of reach. From somewhere impossibly distant, he heard his name being called. Within his fading consciousness, a voice questioned whether this wretched existence was all his life would ever amount to. The question lingered unanswered. Unable to endure any longer, Sung finally collapsed, exhaustion consuming him completely. When his eyes opened again, the world was no longer the same. A towering shadow stood before him, radiating crushing pressure and unmistakable hostility. Dazed and hollow, Sung reacted weakly. Before comprehension could form, an overwhelming force struck him, a blow so massive it swallowed all sensation. As pain surged, fragments of memory surfaced. He remembered losing his family to a violent typhoon. He remembered standing before the Dan family's gate, begging for the chance to survive. With every imagined strike, the humiliation he had suffered in that household replayed relentlessly. Gradually, a devastating realization settled in. His entire existence felt like an error. From the moment he had been born into this world, something terribly wrong had gone on. Deep within his consciousness, the mysterious presence pleaded desperately to be saved. Reality snapped back. Psalm lay on the cold, stable floor, his body shattered beyond what it should have endured. Yet his eyes now glowed with a chilling red light. A twisted smile spread slowly across his face. As he rose to his feet, he was no longer the same as before. His movements were steady, deliberate, filled with purpose. Without hesitation, he walked back into the stable. Catching his reflection in the water, he recalled the name of the body he now inhabited. Salzam. A cough escaped him as pain surged through the fragile frame. This body was thin, damaged, and on the verge of collapse. The filthy, cramped stable confirmed it. This was the same place as before. That was when the truth became clear. The original Salzam had died from the beating. What now occupied this body was someone else entirely. As the realization struggled to settle, something strange appeared before him. A massive blue screen materialized in midair, glowing vividly as it welcomed him to Murim Online. The interface was unmistakable. A status window. A system. Its presence confirmed what he had already begun to suspect. Elsewhere in the village, Makal walked through the streets with a bowl of food in hand, muttering irritably under his breath. He complained about always being the one forced to clean up after others. His frustration deepened as he recalled how Salzam had crossed paths with Pang Dorian, a man infamous for his violent temper. That encounter had enraged the master, and Makal had been left to suffer the consequences. Dark thoughts briefly surfaced. He considered killing the boy outright, ending the problem permanently, but quickly abandoned the idea. The risk was far too high. Being caught would cost him his own life. Instead, he vented his anger by kicking open the stable door and flinging the bowl inside. The food scattered across the dirt floor, landing near Salzam. The boy remained silent. His glowing red eyes observed everything with unsettling calm. He began assessing his circumstances. 2 weeks had passed since he awakened in this world. During that time, he had quietly gathered information by listening to Makal and observing his surroundings. The first thing he learned was that the people spoke Chinese, yet this land was not China. Nearby, guards trained in a courtyard, swinging swords with inhuman speed. Fighters leapt through the air, moving faster than any normal body should allow. Entire formations shifted in flawless synchronization. Martial arts here were neither legend nor performance. They were real. Martial artists moved through the air, flying across the courtyard faster than anything Sawum had ever witnessed. One of the trainers stepped forward and began practicing his sword with intense focus. Once the others followed, movements aligned perfectly as all of them began practicing together, their strikes flowing in flawless synchronization. Sawum watched in silence. With every movement he observed, a realization settled deeper into his mind. Martial arts in this world were not techniques or performances. They were alive. This place was no imitation. It was not a story nor a myth. What stood before him was the real version of Murim Online. The second discovery was the system itself. The Murim Online status window functioned perfectly, yet only he could see it. Even with the system's presence, he understood that this world was not virtual. The people were not artificial creations. They thought, felt, suffered, and lived by their own will. They were not NPCs. As he stared at the glowing blue screen, he questioned whether he was human or merely a player. The answer no longer held meaning. This world was real, and that was enough. Suddenly, Dong Yu appeared at the entrance of the stable, his expression twisted with mockery and lingering rage. He approached, still bitter over being punished in Sawum's place. This time, however, Sawum rose to his feet without fear. Calmly, he picked up the spilled bowl and began eating the food directly from the ground, showing no hesitation at all. The act ignited Dong Yu's fury. He lunged forward in a blind attack, but Sawum reacted instantly, raising the bowl and blocking the strike with precise timing. Shock flickered across Dong Yu's face. Before he could recover, Sawum countered with a sharp, controlled punch. The red glow in his eyes intensified as he seized Dong Yu by the neck and slammed him into the ground with crushing force. In that moment, terror overtook Dong Yu. He understood that the boy he had tormented no longer existed. What stood before him now was something entirely different. Sawum showed no mercy. His fists descended again and again, each impact heavier than the last. Blood sprayed across the floor as resistance faded. The assault continued until Dong Yu could no longer move. Only then did Sawum stop. He stood amid the wreckage, a red aura rippling around him. Closing his eyes, he drew in a slow breath, reflecting on what he had done. Whether he was human or player no longer mattered. This world followed a single rule. Only the strong survived. Strength decided everything. Here there was no need to hide. He was not prey, he was a predator. Beyond the village stretched the jungle known as Gango, a land where even greater and more terrifying beasts roam freely. The thought of them brought a faint smile to his face. Once his body recovered, he would begin hunting again. For true predators, this world was not hell. It was paradise. And within the divine land of Murim, Sawum had finally found where he belonged.